Glass. So this movie is a really interesting beast, and it has my brain all shattered, like glass. This is a movie that I decided to see out of my obligation, because I saw it late. I'd seen all the negative buzz around it, you know, people saying that it sucked, and everything like that, and how it retroactively ruins Unbreakable. But there's certain film franchises, for me, where I don't really see them because I have a ton of interest in the movie itself. I see it more out of an obligation, and after I heard about the negative press surrounding this one, I was like, well, obligation sort of set in, and I decided I was going to see it anyway. And this mentality has rewarded me in ways both good and bad. The obligation to the Jurassic Park franchise hasn't really panned out. The obligation to Star Wars has. There's also an obligation to see M. Night films, because I've seen all of them. At this point, why not just see all of them? Because if he releases, he keeps releasing them, and I think there's sort of a fascination with seeing whether or not he's going to get back to form, but the more movies of his that I've seen, I wonder, was there ever really a form? Did he just hit lightning in a bottle with The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable? Because it was right after that, that's when the downtrend, I can't even say he's had a roller coaster career, because he started really high at, here he is around here with The Sixth Sense, and then he went here for Unbreakable, and then Signs kind of brought him down, and then we have The Village, Lady in the Water, The Happening, The Last Airbender, After Earth, and then when The Visit came out, I think people were like, this is the M. Night of, this is like Signs level M. Night, and I would grant you that. And Split was, you know, maybe a few notches higher. It's not, you know, on the level of The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable, but Split was definitely showing an uptrend. And I figured with Glass, when I saw that little connection, this is one of those rare twists where, oh, that's interesting. Split was connected to Unbreakable, and he's going to make a movie. There's going to be like a trilogy we didn't know about. That's kind of interesting. I'd like to see how M. Night does that. Although, when you think about it, every single one of his dumbass movies takes place in Philadelphia, so of course it's not that far of a stretch to say all of his movies are connected, at least in some way. And it was under that guise I was like, I wonder if the Grassy Scrunts are gonna show up in Grass. Where's Cleveland Heap? Where's Mark Wahlberg? Where's the part where Kevin Wendell Crumb says to Mr. Glass, are you eyeing my lemon drink? And he goes, what, motherfucker? No! The main thing that was going through my head when I left the theater was how much I disliked the ending. And spoilers are just full spoilers at this point. The end of the movie is the Beast and the Overseer, who is David Dunn, Bruce Willis's character from Unbreakable. I don't know why I explained that, because this is the spoiler section. Surely, if you're watching at this point, you know. They're fighting in the parking lot of this, like, mental institution, and, you know, they're just kind of having their little back-and-forth wrestling match, and it ends, and then there's an 11th hour twist where there's this secret society whose sole responsibility is keeping out, like, getting rid of superpowered humans, and what's her name? Sarah Paulson, I think is the actress. Dr. Ellie Staple. She's part of the secret society, and they all have clover tattoos. And her entire mission is that instead of murdering superpowered people, she is there to convince them that they are not superpowered, which is okay. I think that's actually kind of an interesting, plot line, because there's a part in Unbreakable where David is talking to his son, and he tells him, like, oh, anybody, like, there's power lifters who can lift extreme amounts, like, basically telling his kid, I'm no superhero. And, like, she tries to do that to all of them. Like, same with Mr. Glass. It's like, your superpower is that you have cognitive abilities. And it's just like, he's just super smart. Like, that's really, Mr. Glass is just intelligent. That's not a superpower. And also, they show them doing things in the movie, like, that are so demonstrably provable, which is why the whole premise bugged me right from the off. The fact that she was there to try and convince them that they weren't superhuman. This could work. It's an interesting concept if it were done in a different context, where if we didn't know, based on previous movies and what they do in this movie, if we didn't see what they did, that could be an interesting concept of somebody convincing someone that they're just really strong. You're not a superhero, you're just a strong person. But I think the way it's presented is what really kills it. So after they have this fight in this mental institution, the secret society just murders all three of them. Although Mr. Glass is technically, I guess you could say he was killed by the Horde. But it was such a waste. Because if you like Unbreakable, the fact that they kill Bruce Willis is, like, that was my least favorite part, because the scene that they kill him off in is just the worst. Because they've got him, he's, laying down in a puddle, and they're just, constantly pushing his face into the puddle to drown him, and I'm just and they keep, pulling his head out so he can talk to Sarah Paulson, and she just tells him, I'm sorry, I had to trick you. And then they dunk him again. And it's they do this in, a public, a really public setting with, a ton of witnesses. I was this is the shittiest secret society on the planet. Because they snipe the Horde in the stomach. And, everybody's watching. He does it, while Casey is there. And, they do it, I couldn't believe it. As I was watching this, I was oh, they're just gonna do that. They're just gonna, murder these three people. And, Mr. Glass, he's different. So they're gonna murder David and Kevin in just, broad daylight. Not even gonna make it look like an accident. It's just the shittiest secret society. And it's and at the end, they show our, secondary characters. It's, David's son, Casey, and Mr. Glass's mother. They're just sitting in a train station, and as the news comes in, as people start seeing the video footage of their wrestling match, and people are all reacting whoa, superheroes! And then they cut back to Ellie Staple, and she's just in the institute fuck. I'm a huge comic book dork. I've been reading comics for years. I've always loved comic book movies, even going back to childhood. I've always been a fan of superheroes. That's just, I write a superhero comic myself. So, I am basically this movie's, audience. But the references that it makes are so, I hate using the word cringy, but every time someone tried to say... Because here's the other thing. M. Night Shyamalan's dialogue in all of his movies, even the good ones, is kind of bad. It's usually pretty bad. It's really preachy, and it sounds weighty. It's a lot of noise signifying nothing. That tends to be the case with a lot of M. Night's dialogue. He does not write people naturally. They don't naturally speak in his movies. So, to have these people who are already talking sort of alien, also making these strange references to comic books and making them sound more profound than they really are, came off a bit strange to me. There's a part where David Dunn's son, Joseph Dunn, goes to a comic book store, and he's just thumbing through the comic books, and he's in the hero section, and then he goes over to the villain section. Listen, I've been to comic book stores all over the East Coast, okay? I've seen them in Boston, I've seen them in southern New England, I've seen them in Philadelphia. I've been to a comic book store in Philadelphia. They do not have them set up. I've been to them in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There's no comic book store is set up between heroes and villains in bright neon purple and red, and I know it's visual metaphor because Glass's color is purple, but it was just ridiculous. And of course, Joseph pulls out like a #1 issue of a comic book, and I think it was called like The Whispering Man or something like that, and in bright font it says, "Who were his parents?" What #1 issue about a villain character is posing that as the central question of the book? To me, like that huge like decade-long period of garbage, where over a decade worth of just trash films from Shyamalan, I don't think any of those bad movies, and they got really bad. Like, for as bad as Glass is, I would say it's below The Visit. But it's not on the level of, like, his really bad... It's not like The Happening, it's not Lady in the Water, it's not The Last Airbender, it's not After Earth. It's none of those bad movies that he's put out. I would say it's, like, a notch or two below The Visit. Its main problems are its pacing, its story doesn't make sense, and it's, like, not really well performed outside of James McAvoy. Like I love Bruce Willis, but like he has shown me, and I've seen 2 movies of his within the last year or so, Death Wish 2018 and now this, and it makes me wonder why anybody would hire Bruce Willis, why he would be cast in anything at this point, because he clearly does not give a shit about his craft. He sleepwalks through this movie. His face does not contort into any sort of emotion. Everyone else on set is better than he is. And Samuel L. Jackson, as much as I love him, and I like him as Glass at the end of the movie, in the beginning of the movie, he's just sitting there like this, making twitchy faces. And that's all he's doing. So and it doesn't help when you have bad performances that also are delivering bad dialogue. Like, it's just not a good match. So that's, I think, all I really have to say about Glass. It was GLASSanine. Bye.